Hello everyone, welcome to the 19th of our ACCA P7 Advanced Audit and Assurance Lecture Recaps. Okay, so we're looking at forensic auditing here. Forensics, we need to know the different definitions surrounding forensics. First of all, forensic accounting. This is examining the financial statements, basically to provide an analysis. The skills that you're going to use, the accounting skills, auditing skills and investigative skills. And when are you going to use this? Well, it could be for legal disputes, insurance claims, or maybe divorce. So forensic accounting is really looking at the financial statements and providing an analysis of them. Forensic accountants then will need to look beyond the numbers. They'll need to be able to deal with complex areas. They'll need to analyse them, interpret them, and summarise them. So they need to be able to do all of those things. They'll need to have some legal knowledge because this will provide evidence for a court. So they need to be aware of evidential issues so that they're able to communicate that evidence in court. Forensic investigations, well, these are specialised investigations. They may be applied to the court proceedings and they may be on various different areas. It could be medicine, medical malpractice, engineering, and we'll look at several of these shortly. So when it comes to forensic auditing is applying your audit skills to situations with legal consequences. So forensic applies to the legal area of it, and auditing applies to the auditing. So it's applying your audit skills to situations with legal consequences. We're going to be examining evidence regarding some sort of assertion, determining whether it meets that criteria, and then providing evidence of it that's suitable to a court. So that's exactly what you're doing when you're doing some forensic auditing. So the work that's involved in forensics, it might be fraud investigations, for example, embezzlement of funds, tax evasion, or insider dealing. So the sorts of work you're going to be doing, tracing funds, tracing assets, due diligence, or detailed reviews of areas. So that will be fraud investigations. It could also be insurance claims. For example, business interruptions, property losses, or maybe medical malpractice. Now, the sorts of work in this area will be a detailed review of the insurance policy to make sure that you're actually covered for what it is that's claiming, a method of calculation, and then using that to quantify the loss that's been made. When it comes to professional negligence, this is a loss through professional advice, so perhaps financial advice. So the work that's involved here, the merits of the case, is there a case to answer, and quantifying the loss that's been made. Also, you may be undertaking work for various types of disputes, for example, business partners in dispute or divorce, matrimonial cases. So again, the work is going to be detailed analysis of financial information, tracing funds or assets, or evaluating the value of assets. So the sorts of things that's required around this sort of work, you'll have to give reports and exhibits and documents, usually for presentation in court, or you may have to testify yourself, or you may be an expert witness if it's relevant, if it's reasonably required, and if you have the expertise and appropriate experience and training. So if you have all of those things, then you may be called as an expert witness. There are some specific ethical considerations when it comes to forensic auditing. First of all, objectivity. Remember, advocacy is one of the threats that we have, an ethical threat. And if you're giving evidence for a client in court, then there may be pressure to say things in that client's interest, and you have to be careful not to. You have to remain objective and state the facts. There's also a self-review threat if you're providing information on maybe some financial review that you have undertaken. Professional competence. We have to make sure that you have the legal knowledge on how to gather evidence and how to deal with evidence. Otherwise you shouldn't be taking on this type of engagement. So you also need to have skills to interview people and to present the evidence in court. So if you don't have all of these skills, then you shouldn't be taking on forensic assignments. Confidentiality. There's two sides to this. Number one, you have to disclose everything to the court. You have to be completely objective, you can't withhold anything. And number two, when it comes to disclosures, you can't disclose anything outside of the court. You have to retain confidentiality. Professional behaviour, well, just remember that because it's a court, it'll be in the public interest, and there will be a reputation risk. So if you give inaccurate evidence, that will be a reputation risk. So conducting forensic audits then. The evidence, there's two sides to this. First of all, procedures to gather evidence. You may be involved in locating documents, economic information, or assets, or maybe even companies, and ensuring that they exist. You may identify expert witnesses, or you may be looking for proof of occurrence of events or transactions, or you may be conducting interviews to find out exactly what has occurred. Lastly, you might be conducting due diligence work. Evaluating that evidence then will involve various things. You may have to establish the economic damage. Now, to do that, you'll maybe use sensitivity analysis, you may have to summarise information, or you may have to undertake NPV calculations. Remember that you'll have to present this, so you may use charts and graphs to present and evaluate the evidence that you've gathered. When it comes to reporting then, when you're actually providing a report for forensic reports, you will address the key issues, and those will be the terms of the assignment, the scope of the assignment, the approach that has been utilised, the limitations of scope if there were any, and the findings or your opinion, whichever you're asked to give. Lastly, it may be that you have to get an expert to provide a report, or you may be an expert providing a report. If so, the expert report must contain these things. It must detail the qualifications, experience, and accreditation of the expert. It must look at the information that's used and give details of it. It must provide a statement of the material facts and the basis of the opinion. The facts stated must be within the knowledge of the expert. If there has been other material used, i.e. material that the expert hasn't produced themselves, they need to detail who has carried it out. Are they qualified? Are they experienced? And were they under expert supervision? So if you're using other material, you need to set out these things and then summarise the findings. If there's a range of opinion, i.e. not just this expert's opinion, that has to be detailed and summarised, and the reasons why the expert has come to their opinion. If the opinion has to be qualified in some way, that needs to be expressed. The conclusions then need to be summarised, and lastly, there has to be a statement of understanding that the expert understands the reasons for giving the information and the implications. And that was our lecture on forensic audits.